garden calamity. You accidentally trimmed this main long cane on your climbing rose. What to do? Well, let's talk what your rose might do and what you should do. And it all depends what time of year you did it and where you did that drastic cut. And by the way, this stem, I tied it up to the edge, like behind my fence, but I want it to be on top of my fence to bloom. This way everybody can see it, right? Ouchie! Well, first of all, roses are not like trees where there is a clearly defined leading branch which is going upwards and it defines the canopy of the tree, and if we cut that leading shoot, we might deform the tree for life. Well, roses are different. The new canes are being produced on a regular basis, the old canes are constantly dying off together with our former mistakes, right? And new canes are growing and we are not making those mistakes again. So don't worry, rose is not going to be deformed for life. Mistakes are going to be forgotten, you would learn and you will take care of the rose all right. So let's talk about timing. Usually the canes, when they are actively growing, and it happens in our climate here in Connecticut, it's usually the basal shoots are actively formed at the beginning of spring and somewhere at the end of summer where rose is preparing for next year's blooms. So when that cane is in the process of active growth and you accidentally trimmed it somewhere along the length of it, that cane might try to produce a lateral shoot which is very long, and you can substitute that lateral shoot. Cut the main cane closely to that lateral shoot, one of them, right? So one can become super long. And then train that shoot, bend it, and train it as if you have a main cane in front of you. So you can compensate for that lost length in the cane, if you want, of course. Well, what happens if you accidentally cut the main cane all the way to the base of the plant? Nothing biggie also. Your rose might try to create basal shoots and start all over again because you deprived rose of the leaf mass. And leaves are so important. They're responsible for collecting sun rays and changing them into energy and sending that energy to support the root system, to support the blooms and life of the plant. Storing energy for the winter, for the plant to live through the winter. So your rose would be, oops, she cut my main cane, so let me again create new canes, and your basal shoots will start growing again. And here your mistake is well learned, and you're not going to do it again. Usually when those long canes are already formed and they're not extending anymore, when you make that accidental cut, your cane is not going to grow. So there wouldn't be long lateral shoots right away coming out. Your rose will be focusing on lateral shoots and blooms, and that cane, nothing will be happening from this end here. The cane is old, and very often that old cane is not doing anything when you do that drastic trim. And that usually happens at the second part of the year, or on old wood, on all the canes which were formed the previous year. So this cane was formed here last year, or maybe even year before that. It's old. So no way it's going to start growing again. It's old, and old wood. Next year, probably I will take that cane off, and my rose will be busy creating new shoots. Sometimes the beginner rosarian buys a young baby climbing rose, introduces it into their garden, and then that rose is not doing anything, just creating long canes. And sometimes there are no blooms whatsoever, or maybe one bloom at the very top of the long cane. So the gardeners start to panic and they start chopping those long canes because they don't understand the nature of the climbing rose. So what they're doing, they're basically depriving themselves of future blooms. Rose is not going to die, although a very interesting thing might happen. We're going to go deeper into the genetics of roses. If the climbing rose is a spot, a variation of a shrub rose, and if the gardener starts cutting those long canes severely, and all of them, that rose might revert back to the shrub growing habit. Very interesting, right? So kind of exercise caution when you want to chop the long canes and see, maybe your rose will respond. It is fighting against the nature of the rose. Climbing roses want to create long stems, and your job is to train them as horizontally as possible. And then you will get side shoots from the main cane probably next year, and then you will be rewarded with blooms. That's a general care points in treating the climbing rose, especially the young climbing rose in your garden. Be patient. The response to no blooms is not taking your secateurs and start chopping off stuff. Train your canes horizontally, and then next year you might be surprised how many blooms your rose can produce. All right, my dear gardeners, look at this apple tree. Blossoms are everywhere. It is so easy to be spoiled with beautiful blossoms in the garden in spring. Enjoy your gardens, and I will see you in our next video. Happy gardening.